If you're like most Americans, you must have noticed that grocery shopping has been growing more expensive with each passing month. Food prices are soaring all across the country, and industry experts are alerting that from now on, it's only going to get worse. Even the mainstream media is warning that grocery bills will continue to climb for the rest of the year. And when corporate media starts flashing a red light over an issue that was overlooked for months, we know that things are about to get serious. The truth is that U.S. consumers should brace for a widespread shortage of goods, and as a consequence, skyrocketing prices will continue on a meteoric rise as our economy gets ravaged by inflation. And that's what we're going to expose today. So stay with us, and don't forget to leave a thumbs up and share this video, and subscribe to our channel to keep updated with our latest notifications. A new report released on Tuesday by the Labor Department revealed that consumer prices shot higher in March as trillions in stimulus money started flooding the economy, pushing the Consumer Price Index up 2.6% from the same period a year ago, marking the highest year-over-year gain since August 2018 and well above the 1.7% recorded in February. Meanwhile, the monthly increase was 0.6% from the previous month. Although that figure doesn't sound very concerning on its own, when adjusted annually, it represents a rise of a whopping 7.2%. The main driver of this staggering hike on the Consumer Price Index was the significant increase in gasoline prices, which have surged 9.1% in March and went up 22.5% from a year ago, part of a 13.2% increase in energy prices. According to Michael Pierce, senior U.S. economist at Capital Economics, the report is the clearest indication so far that the signs of mounting inflation evident in business surveys and producer prices are feeding through to stronger consumer prices. Pierce also underscored that even before the latest supply disruptions occurred, prices were already set to face the strongest upward pressure in decades due to the massive expansion of our money supply that boosted a fast-growing demand. However, the federal government and the Federal Reserve claim the economy has not reached its 2% inflation target, and they are likely to engage in further spending throughout the whole year, which will result in even sharper price rises. Although politicians and policymakers argue the inflation rate remains low, John Williams of Shadowstats.com explained that the current rate is calculated differently these days, and the official number greatly understates what is really going on in the economy. If the rate of inflation was still calculated the way it used to be, it would mark over 10% right now. That is to say, we're reaching Jimmy Carter levels of inflation, but most of the population is completely unaware of this. Additionally, higher gasoline prices have increased transport costs, and demand continues to outpace oil production. Therefore, that rise will be passed on to consumers. For that reason, the agricultural economist for Aerostream, a supply chain management software company, Isaac Olvera, warned that grocery prices are likely to remain on the higher end of estimates for at least the rest of the year. While Phil Lempert, founder of SupermarketGuru.com, predicts that food prices are going to continue to increase for probably a good year and a half. Data released by the U.S. Department of Agriculture indicates food price inflation will escalate an additional 3% this year. In 2020, food prices rose 3.9%, almost triple last year's overall rate of inflation, according to the government's Bureau of Labor Statistics. All 6 of the government's measures of grocery store indexes surged, with the food at home category increasing 3.3%, setting the biggest gain of 5.4% in the category of meats, poultry, fish, and eggs. In January 2020, the national average for a pound of bacon was $4.72. By the end of March 2021, that price had rocketed to $5.11, according to exclusive supermarket point-of-sale data from Nielsen IQ. Ground beef rose to $5.26 a pound from $5.02. Bread escalated from $2.66 a loaf from $2.44. The USDA projects that the cost of key food components, such as soybeans and wheat, will soar by at least 5% in 2021, pushing up the cost of staples like pasta and cereal. Prices for fruits like apples, strawberries, and citrus already have jumped 11.3% this year. From now on, people will have to get used to paying more for food. That's what the director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University, Sylvain Charlebois, told Bloomberg, stressing that it's only going to get worse. Amongst the main drivers to this meteoric price rise is the plummeting food production. Since the health crisis started, several production and packing plants were completely shut down due to a number of widespread outbreaks caused by crowded working conditions. A shortage of product and labor triggered a sharp increase in meat prices. BLS data pointed out that consumer spending on meat surged 5.5% from January 2020 to January of this year. Even though many processing plants are reopening, owners are having to invest in technology and new operations to keep their workers safe, which includes more automation and equipment that can be operated remotely. And, of course, that additional investment cost will be absorbed by the end consumer. Moreover, the sanitary outbreak also derailed food distribution, and the recent transportation tumult is adding to the price pressures. During the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, experts revealed that in 2020, global shipping declined for the first time in 11 years. American grocers are highly reliant on international shipping to keep shelves well stocked. But, as Olvera highlighted, supply chains are largely inefficient at this time. The Food and Drug Administration noted the U.S. imports account for 15% of its overall food supply, and estimates show we import roughly 65% of our seafood from international producers. Higher demand and a change of habits are contributing to elevated prices too. After restaurants were forced to close and remote working became more popular amongst American workers, people have begun eating more at home. With millions of families now at home for 3 meals a day, food consumption in the U.S. has boomed. A recent article published by Agribusiness disclosed that 50% of participants in a food consumption survey affirmed they had been buying more food than usual during the health crisis, with 33% admitting to stockpiling it. And as the food supply sinks, there's really only one direction prices can go. On top of all that, extreme weather has severely disturbed the global supply chain. One simple example of how vulnerable supply chains are at the moment can be seen in the fallout of the recent Texas storms. The brutal blizzard devastated entire crops and livestock, significantly impacting food and water distribution in the Lone Star State. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller told several media outlets that farmers were forced to dump roughly 14 million gallons of milk during the crisis. According to Texas A&M's AgriLife Extension Service estimates, the state's farmers and ranchers have lost more than $600 million, and the agency predicts that the ultimate result will be more food shortages and even higher prices around the nation. And this is the effect of just one storm that lasted only 4 days in one state of the country. When similar events start to occur more frequently and more powerfully, the threat to the U.S. food supply will only grow, and grocery bills will continue to follow that upward trend. Evidently, America isn't facing these problems alone. All around the world, food prices are rising far more rapidly than people's incomes. In fact, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations reported that in March, global food commodity prices rose for the 10th month in a row, with quotations for vegetable oils and dairy products leading the rise. The FAO Food Price Index, which tracks monthly changes in the international prices of commonly traded food commodities, averaged 118.5 points in March, 2.1% higher than in February, and reaching its highest level since June 2014, reads the report. And sadly, those at the very bottom of the economic food chain have been suffering the most from rising food prices. Food riots have already started to be registered in multiple areas, and World Vision, a humanitarian relief organization, warned that due to a locust infestation, critical floodings, social uprisings, and the worsening of the sanitary outbreak across several regions of East Africa, approximately 7 million more people are at the brink of starvation this year. According to the charity, which operates in nearly 100 countries, thousands of children could be fatally affected or suffer long-term health consequences if the international community does not promptly respond to East Africa's worsening crisis. UN experts have continuously stressed that famines of biblical proportions would sweep across the globe in 2021 if world leaders did not urgently take action. Unfortunately, here we are. Despite not experiencing the same extreme level of suffering as Eastern Africa countries, the US is the country with the largest number of food-insecure people in the developed world. Since the burst of the outbreak, food insecurity rates sharply increased in America, from 10.9% in 2019 to 13.9% in 2020. In numbers, that means a rise from 35.2 million food-insecure Americans in 2019 to 45 million in 2020. And it is just sad to say that this figure will continue to climb in 2021. In essence, even in the best of times, the planet was already struggling to feed the entire world population, and we're headed to even steeper hardships in both food production and distribution. Although the US might still have enough supply for people to stockpile and secure themselves and their families, only those who manage to somehow keep their jobs and maintain some sort of financial stability during the recession will be able to afford such highly inflated prices. It is very unfortunate to admit that food prices may not return to lower levels for years, and things are going to become even more painful as our leaders continue to flood the system with more cash. We don't want to sound biased, but all of the warnings we reported throughout this video are consistent with what the economic collapse writer, Michael Snyder, has mentioned in his latest book, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America. We always recommended it because we do believe he provides a far more accurate outlook of our future reality than most media outlets. As Snyder always says, dark clouds are emerging on the horizon, and you should get prepared and stay tuned with the challenges that lie ahead, here on Epic Economist. Thank you for watching, and we hope to have you here for the next video.